Ladies and gentlemen, you are now entering the Decent Christian Talk podcast. Enjoy.
Decent Christian Talk, episode 22. Feel like it's seems like we just talked recently. Hey, this is actually podcast number 2 for the week, which is very rare for us. Let me tell you, it's not something we're going to get into the habit of doing, but we had so much awesome content that we just had to put out this week that we decided to have 2 podcasts. If you missed the one from earlier this week, I'd encourage you to check it out. It's with Satellites and Sirens' Jeff Hunker. It was a really good just conversation about, just about their new record and about pop music in the Christian market, and it was, it was really good. So I would encourage you to check that out, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But first, I would just like to thank you guys for joining me. If you haven't already, check us out on decentchristiantalk.com. We are online on the interwebs on decentchristiantalk.com. You can check us out. If you would like to subscribe to us, you can put your email address on the right-hand side of the page, and every time we do an update, send out a podcast, do an interview, you'll be the first to know. Not only that, but there's also a donate button on there, and hey, the holidays are coming up. Send us a nice little gift. No, but honestly, hey, it helps us pay the bills. We have, there's a couple things that cost money when it comes to doing these types of things, and that would definitely help us out. Definitely check us out on Twitter at DC Talk Act 2, the number 2. We always promote our shows on the Twitter page. We're even on Facebook. Just look up Decent Christian Talk. And we always also post on there as well. So, the reason why this is the second podcast of the week is because we have an interview with For King and Country's Joel Smallbone, who has been involved with this movie called Priceless, that the Smallbone family has kind of taken on as a project, and let me tell you, it is absolutely incredible. You guys have to go and see this movie, and I'll talk a little bit more about that right before we head into the interview. But I want to touch upon a couple of things that's actually coming out this Friday, and to be honest with you, it's something that we've all had on this podcast, and that is the new record from Disciple. They are releasing their record that they raised on Kickstarter called Long Live the Rebels. I was very surprised at the turnaround, because a lot of times when bands raise money on Kickstarters, it takes a little more time to release the album. I feel like they just ended this Kickstarter. I mean, we talked with the band in early July, okay, and they had not even announced the Kickstarter. The day we actually released our interview with them, and if you haven't heard that interview, you can just scroll back through the Decent Christian Talk podcast archive. It's not that far back. But the day we released that podcast was actually the day they started their Kickstarter. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. But yeah, already the album is here. The band was kind enough to send me a copy of the album beforehand, and they weren't kidding. I mean, if you listen to that interview from earlier, they really rocked it on this one. It's called Long Live the Rebels. It's probably one of the better rock albums of the year. Up there with the new Thrice album and a couple other ones that I've listened the crap out of. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away because it's not out yet. But I believe they are just releasing a single off the album, so be catching that on your local Christian rock stations. Be sure to support them. If you've not signed up, or if you did not give it into the Kickstarter campaign, you probably already have the album if you've given to the Kickstarter campaign. If you haven't, you're going to have to wait till the end of this week, and I would definitely recommend that. Another group that we've interviewed recently that is releasing an album is Hillsong. It's not Hillsong United, it's their, I don't know how to explain it, it's just called Hillsong Worship. I guess you would just call it their adult contemporary band. I don't know what to call them. But anyway, a lot of times it's the same songwriters that are writing these songs, and you'll end up hearing Hillsong United doing a rendition of a song or two. But anyway, they have a record coming out this Friday as well, and that album is called Let There Be Light. And so this is the first Hillsong release since the film that came out. That if you haven't seen the film, it's probably not in theaters now, but when you can see this on DVD or on some streaming service that they might be on later, definitely check that out. Yeah, Hillsong has always been, they put out albums every single year, and there's always a song or two off each album that ends up being played in churches around the world, and it's incredible, their reach. Another band that is releasing an album, or not a band, but an artist, Derek Minor. He's also been on our podcast. His album is called Reflection. And I heard a single that he did with Holland from Toby Mac's camp, and it was really different for him. It actually featured him singing, and it was really good. And I'm impressed with the stretching of his artistry with that song. I don't know if the whole album is sounding like that, or if that's just a single, or I don't know. I'm excited. He just released an EP a month or so ago. That was really good. But that was the lead up into this, which is on his own label. So, he has free reign to do what he wants. Yeah, I'm definitely excited. Derek Minor is one of my favorite Christian hip-hop artists. He's probably, arguably, the most popular Christian hip-hop artist that is not on Reach Records. He's kind of he's kind of on the forefront of the independent Christian hip-hop community. And if you haven't heard the interview we did with Derek Minor, we talked a little bit about the next step for Christian hip-hop is to have successful independent hip-hop artists come up like a Derek Minor. And I know Derek Minor was on Reach Records, and that's how he got his name. And he probably won't argue with you when it comes to that. But we need more artists like him, like Social Club Misfits that have had success. And I agree. I think that is the next step for Christian hip-hop, is for those types of artists to gain notoriety. 10th Avenue North, they have an album coming out called The Followers. 10th Avenue North was not a band that I was really into for their first couple albums, but their last album, I believe, was called Cathedrals. I absolutely loved. I really did. I mean, it was one of those pop albums that I just really... I ended up listening to more than I thought I would. And it had a lot of really good tracks, especially with the deluxe edition. There was a really good track with KB, who everyone knows I love. So I'm interested in this. I've not heard anything from this album at all, so I'm definitely curious. I hope it's. I don't want it to be the exact same as Cathedrals, but I hope it's along those lines, because I think they were definitely onto something there. And of course, Satellites and Sirens, they were on our last podcast. Their album called Tanks is dropping this Friday. It is a really, like I said, I really love good pop, and this is it's not like pop like Newsboys pop. It's more of a synth driven pop. This album is, anyway. And I think I've talked about almost every episode how much I love synth. It's not quite as synth as the last Kevin Max record. But I mean, it's if you could add a little more guitar to Kevin Max's album, I guess you could say that would be a good way to compare it to the Satellites and Sirens album. It's a really good album. There's a lot of really good lyrics. If you want to hear more about that, check out our last podcast with Satellites and Sirens. But it was definitely something that's worth checking out. All of these albums are coming out this Friday. I mean, this is a big release day, and honestly, you're gonna start seeing. I mean, this is probably one of the big last release days of the year, and you're gonna see a lot of holiday-themed music from here on out, which I'm kind of, I don't really check out that much, to be honest with you. Embrace this, because you might not get a whole lot more music until 2017, to be honest with you. That takes us to the interview with Joel Smallbone. Before we get to that, we have got to talk about this film, Priceless. I got to watch this film about 2 weeks ago, and I will be honest, I was not expecting much. Anytime there's a band involved with making a film, or some kind of like a music artist, with all due respect, there's a reason why they're music artists. And, there's a phrase, don't quit your day job. A lot of times that applies, and you'll see, like, Eminem or 50 Cent or these guys making movies, and a lot of times they turn out okay. I can't think of one right off the top of my head. I guess Eminem and 8 Mile is a good example of a film that people enjoy. A music artists making a movie, but a lot of times it's not good results, is what I'm saying. I was blown away by how good this movie was. I was blown away by how good Joel Smallbone was in his role. And I know that this was not his first acting role. He's done a couple, like, supporting roles in some not as advertised movies. But this was really good for him because it was a good story, and it was I think it's something that he put his heart into, and it's something that he believed in. I think it's something that all the actors believed in, and we talk a little bit about that in the interview with some, especially his involvement with David Koechner, who was famously on The Office as Todd Packer. Some of you are Office fans. And he's done a couple other roles, Champ on Anchorman. This is actually a serious role for him. And that's another reason why I saw him listed in this movie, and I was like, I don't think this is going to work. Because, it's kind of like when Will Ferrell tries to be serious, and you're like, or Jim Carrey even, or Adam Sandler, and you're like, oh, come on, man, just be funny, do what you do best. But he was really good in this, and I think a big reason why was he just really believed and just fell in love with the story of this. And this is this is a story, I haven't really said it yet, but it's a story about human trafficking. And it's a story about freedom from that. And while it's not a completely true story, there's a lot of truth. It's based on a true story, and there's it's a real thing that exists out there. And it's just a really good film. I don't want to give too much away out of respect for the people that have made this movie. But I will say that I was absolutely blown away by it. And I really think that this is going to be a film. It's going to be limited in release when it comes to theater. I would encourage you guys to check out the website for Priceless. I don't really know it off the top of my head. I think we talk about it in the interview. But I would encourage you guys to see if there is a theater anywhere near you this weekend that plays it. And if not, hey, it's going to be one of those movies that's going to be on DVD. And I think it's going to be one of those films that has a, kind of a cult-like following. Kind of a couple months after the fact. And there's a lot of films that have that over the course of the history of movies. And I think this is going to be one of them. Because this is a story that is just touching. And it's a story that needs to be told. And look, I don't want to get too political about this. But there's been a lot of stories in the media recently. And I'm not going to name names, but you guys can figure it out. There's been a lot of stories in the media about respect for women. And the lack thereof. And this film touches upon that. And, that is a very important subject. And this film addresses that head on. And for anyone that defends people that disrespect women, maybe I shouldn't go there, but I would just challenge you to watch this movie and try to maintain that same mindset, because they are somebody that deserves to be defended. Because just face it. Sure, women don't deserve to be treated like that. Nobody deserves to be treated like that. This is really a matter of respect, and this is really a matter of God's children, that we just really need to take care of each other. And there's no excuse for there to be, I think, over 30 million slaves in the world today. That if that doesn't break your heart, I don't really know what would. But this is just this film is a small microcosm of that issue, and it addresses it head on. And I don't want to say a whole lot more. So we're just going to go to the interview. Without further ado, here is our interview with For King and Country's Joel Smallbone.
All right, hit that horn, babe. Let's dance.
Mirror, mirror, mirror on the wall, telling those lies, pointing out your flaws. That isn't who you are. That isn't who you are. It might be hard to hear, but let me tell you, dear, if you could see what I could see, I know you would believe.
So we got this movie coming out soon. It's called Priceless. I got to watch this over the last week, and I really dug this film. How did you become involved with this? This seems like a really big undertaking. How did you get involved with this?
Well, you were right when you say that. It was, it makes, making a record in music, which obviously is what my brother and myself and For King and Country are more apt to do. It makes that look like a walk in the park. But this is a passion project for us. We have, since the beginning of the band, have really felt impressed and moved to share about chivalry and celebrating a woman's worth. As we started traveling years ago, I had just met my now wife, and Luke had just gotten married, and so this idea of commitment and love and relationships was very sort of keen on our minds and hearts. And it was exciting, Gabriel, but it was also alarming to see the response from our audience regarding this message. One of the tangible things we did was we have these framed Australian 1-cent coin necklaces that we'd make available, and we've seen 300,000 Americans kind of rally around this cause at this point. So we went to our brother Ben, who actually is a filmmaker, so it's all in the family, and we said, hey, this was a few years ago, we said, hey, we feel as though there's a story that needs to be told here. What do you think about kind of taking this message to the silver screen? His eyes lit up, and he recalled a documentary that he'd filmed a few years prior that had always stuck with him, a true story. And so we pulled inspiration from that, as well as kind of married it to this Priceless movement. And after a lot of great actors coming on board, a lot of really just incredible team members, and seeing the film on our end from inception of the story to myself acting in it and Luke, my brother, producing it, and now into the promotion of it, we have been part of it every step of the way.
After getting to finally watch the final product of all of this, after all this work, what part of the story resonated with you the most?
Well, it's a drama and it's a thriller, but it's also a love story. It's a love story in kind of three parts. It's a love story between two sisters. It's a love story between a father and a daughter, and then towards the end between a man and a woman. And I think there's certain components that my character James, who is a very normal man. He's an American, first of all. So as you know, Gabriel, I had to lose the Aussie dialect, if you will, to play this role. Yeah. And I had a great dialect coach who's worked with incredible international actors, Helen Mirren and Gerard Butler, to name a few. He came on board and really helped me with that. But the reason I wanted to play an American is because this is an American issue, an American story. But he's a normal fella. He's a normal bloke. He'd lost his wife in an accident, and really kind of derailed after that, in and out of prison, couldn't hold a steady job. And as a result, his daughter, his only child, was taken from him by protective services because he couldn't look after her. And in a real desperate moment, his friend comes to him, one of his friends comes to him and says, hey, I've got this opportunity for you. It's easy money, it's good money, it's cash. It's a transportation job. You drive this truck straight through, no stops, no questions asked. And you drop it off, and then you're done. And James sees it as a way of getting his life back on track, as a way of getting his daughter back, so he takes the job. He can't make it through that first night. He falls asleep at the wheel and runs off the road into a ditch. And as he's sort of surveying the truck, he finds it's not what he's carrying, but who he's carrying. He's got two young ladies in the back of the truck, and invites them into the cab. And the rest of the road trip is kind of them getting to know each other, and him really seeing a strength in the elder of the two sisters. She believes she's coming to be a maid or a waitress, and So he takes them at their word, and it's kind of, again, he's drawn to this woman because of her charisma and kind of character and faith and courage in the face of really hardship. But gets to the drop-off point, and once he realizes, he meets a man by the name of Garo, who's played by Jim Perry from the Suicide Squad, and Fury opposite Brad Pitt. And once he realizes that he's actually incidentally sold them into slavery, he becomes a bit of a vigilante, partners with a hotel owner in the small town by the name of Dale, played by David Koechner from Anchorman and The Office, and really fights. His physical fight is to try and get the girls back. But then really Antonia, the woman in the film, is a real hero, because in some ways she's saving him, spiritually and emotionally. And so it's a great story. It feels like a very timely story, and just can't wait for people to experience it.
You mentioned David Koechner. This is a role that's really different for anything that he's ever done. And you guys had such really good chemistry, I thought, in the film. How was it getting to work with him and just interacting with him on the set?
No, he's a good man. Look, he's a father of 5. He has 3 daughters, and so this was a real passion project for him. And you could tell he took me under his wing as an actor. I mean, most of the scenes that he was in, we were in together. I think actually all the scenes, barring one. And so he really embraced me. This guy's an incredibly seasoned actor, and I'm a newcomer for sure. And he very easily could have just had this musician kind of coming in and, gee, can you believe it? And and on the contrary, he really embraced me, and that chemistry that you speak about was very real. We were just out in LA last weekend doing some press for the film, and just great rapport and understanding and mutual respect. And so, and I don't have a bad word to say about him. It was a very different role for him. Obviously, he's primarily known as a comedic actor, but if you think of Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society or Steve Carell in Foxcatcher, these comedic actors have a real way of approaching these different roles with a unique, beautiful timing and kind of pizzazz, and I loved it.
All right, this is going to be a tough question for you. What makes you most nervous? Getting ready to go play on Jimmy Kimmel, or getting ready to do a big scene?
You know what? If I can shift your television appearance a bit, Jimmy Kimmel was okay because Jimmy Kimmel was live to tape, and what that means is if you screw up, which we did at Jimmy Kimmel, I have a megaphone on one of the songs that I started the song off with, and the megaphone didn't work. And so with Jimmy Kimmel and the whole audience, we had to stop the song and we had to restart. But because it's not live, it's live to tape, you can redo it and they can fix it up. But we played The View this year, and that is live. Anything that happens is going to be broadcast. And that, I've not been more nervous for a performance than I was for that in a pretty long time. And again, with the scenes, if you screw up the scene, you can do it again and you have another shot at it. But we had one shot on The View, and it came together beautifully. It was for Candice Beret's birthday, and we had surprised her by having a daughter come out and sing part of the song Priceless with us. But I was pretty horrified, Gabriel, in that moment.
What is the most challenging thing for you, making a movie or making an album?
A movie. I got to tell you, man. I mean, making a record is hard. Don't get me wrong, but making a movie makes making a record seem like a walk in the park.
Yeah, especially when you have to learn a new accent, right?
Yeah, well, losing the accent, and there's so many people. You know, he had 70. Between the cast and the crew, you had 70 people on set. You know, we raised over $4 million for the film. Like, there's just so many layers to it and with a record, you got time to kind of make the record a success. With a film, you really have 3 days. You have that first weekend of theatrical release. I mean, it still could be a DVD success and that sort of thing, but you really only have that 3 days theatrically for people to really take note and for you to kind of blow the doors off it. And so, in this case, just in a few short days, the 14th, 15th, and 16th of this month, is that time frame for us. And our hope is that people really resonate with this message and this story, and they sort of come out in droves and support this picture.
Okay, so you've got to give a 1-minute pitch to anyone that might be on the fence about seeing this film. What would you say to them?
Well, Hollywood's in an interesting time because I feel like this year there have not been a lot of passion projects. There's been sort of a lot of kind of regurgitated stories about superheroes and capes and that sort of thing, which I've enjoyed some of them. But this is a passion story. This is a relevant story to where we find ourselves as human beings today, and it's an inspirational story, and it's a gritty story, and I feel like, and it's a love story, and I feel like all of those components are things that, in my experience, I deeply resonate with in movie making. And so first of all, I think you just really enjoy it. I think you'll be really impacted by it. But secondly, I think there's a great question to be asked in this, and that is, what is our role as humans? And I think in relationships with each other. And I think that question is very prevalent in the film. So, I thoroughly invite you to come out. I think you'll be impacted by it. It's a great story. It came together beautifully. I'm super proud of it. And the hope is, someone asked me the other day, Gabe, like, why? You're musicians. Why do a film? And here's why for us. We believe that the arts, more than ever, is impacting culture and impacting our minds. And if we can tell these great, inspiring stories about real-life issues that point people towards hope and the betterment of humanity and point people towards heaven, then, man, count me in. I will bleed, and I have for this. I will bleed to no end to make these films a reality and music a reality.
I see you dressed in white, every wrong made right. I see you rose in bloom at the sight of you.
Thank you, Joel, once again. That was really exciting for me because honestly, I grew up listening to their older sibling, Rebecca St. James. For those of you that didn't know, Rebecca St. James is the sister of the brothers in For King and Country. So that was, that was really cool to get to talk to them years after I listened to Rebecca St. James. Hey, once again, guys, go check out this movie. This is a big deal, and when people invest money into these types of things, it's important that we support them so that they do more of this more often. This is definitely worth your time. I promise you that. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. I need to announce that Creation Fest has announced their first artist, our friends at Creation. At least for the East Coast. So you need to go to their Facebook page and check that out. They usually don't make artist announcements this early in the year. At least I don't remember the last time they have. So this is a big deal. All I can tell you is just go check it out for yourself. Hey, our next show, I can't tell you exactly who it's going to be. But I will say this. If it's not the next time, further down the road, we are going to have a podcast coming up very soon with Thrice's Dustin Kensrue. For those of you that don't know Thrice, you might be familiar with some of Dustin Kensrue's worship album work. So that's exciting. I really enjoyed the conversation with him. I'll talk a little bit about the show that I got to experience, and I'm going to do that very soon. But until then, hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. Peace out.
Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Thanks.